Yeah, and then it's about impact. It's not about money anymore. So that's one of the things that Lars would tell me. He's like, bro, this isn't about money anymore. Like, this is about impact, and it's about time. I was thinking about all the different evolutions. So like, it started off where it's like, I just want to do 100 deals, like the way I saw myself, right? Then I would read, I was obsessed with freedom, and I read like Jacob Lutzker's like Early Retirement Extreme, where he would live off like fucking lentils and tuna fish, right? So he only had to pay like, you know, his expenses were like $12,000 a year. So if he had a job where he made like 100, you can invest all the difference, and then you can quit working early. And then the Dave Ramsey stage, like pay all your shit off and, you know, fully fund retirement accounts. And I did that diligently. Again, I just saw myself as just like the Heisman Trophy winner of listing property. That's the way I saw myself. So I wouldn't deviate from anything outside of that. I realized that I had a meaningful net worth of a couple $1 million, but I didn't feel wealthy, and I still had to sell real estate to pay bills because I didn't have a lot of residual income. And I heard Grant say having all your money tied up in your house and in a retirement plan is another form of poverty. And I was like, that's fucking crazy, because that's true. And then I started to make changes. It began with changes in moving, even though that sounds strange. So the reason why I can give people so much shit about like them taking so long to make decisions is because my tendency in the past was to be exceptionally like conservative, really, really motivated by certainty. Like I did the reason why I'm giving you shit about buying something in the same place, I did that. I bought a 2-bedroom, which I don't know what the fuck I was thinking, because my wife said we wanted to have 2 kids. That's not true. I was scared, so I went smaller. We lived in that for 7 years. I paid it off. And we stayed there with 2 children, one sleeping in the living room and one in their room, for a whole year after Liliana was born. Then I went out and bought a 3-bedroom, but guess what? In the same neighborhood. And we paid that off or whatever. But then I started to realize, like, bro, this isn't, and I would be on these mastermind calls, and there's people that are in their 50s and 60s and they're still talking about fucking contacts and shit. I'm like, bro, something's wrong. And then I started to change. The first change came with we moved, which you would think, and it was interesting because Carla was like, I got like a little like, I don't know how I feel about this, you know? She's like, babe, I never want to be attached to a house. It's just a space. It's not, you know what I mean? And I think it's good because it's different. It's different. Different energy, different vibes, like it's movement. Instead of being like I'm gonna stay here and like protect, right? So we did that, and that was the first one. And then I did something that was interesting in alignment with what I thought to be true, is I took the money that I would have used to buy that house and I invested it. And most people would think that that's crazy. Remember, I know I sound crazy to a lazy mind, right? So a syndication with Grant. And that paid like, I don't know, $1,100 a month. So instead of buying something and having a payment, now the rent from that place and the rent from the syndication pays for where I live. But that's like a hard shift away from what everybody else does. And then came the company thing, where you kept telling me, and I was like, nah, bro, I'm good. And I really thought I was right. Like hard. We would triangulate ideas, right? And I was right about, truth is on a spectrum. I was right, but there was something else that was more true, right? But then once I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, got that. That makes sense to me. Started aggressively moving in that direction, but then started to flirt with the idea. Like, I haven't gone on a listing appointment in 6 months. 5 years ago, that was like a year ago, 2 years ago, that was completely unthinkable. Like, not even.
What does that feel like?
I was talking to Carl about this. It's like every new peak is like new air. So if you go up in altitude, the oxygen concentration is less. So it takes time to get acclimated to it. It takes time to get used to it. But for the first 2 months, I was not. It was weird. It was weird, yeah. I was uncomfortable. I'm like,
Restless?
A little restless, yeah, like, And Lars just kept telling me, 2 things. Lars kept telling me, he's like, bro, I've seen your financials. You're gonna die with a lot of money. Like, you don't need to worry about it. The second is Carla did a profit first statement where every week I can see cash in and cash out. Because even though you have resources doesn't mean you don't have anxiety around money. So I would see the cash in, cash out. I'm like, as long as it's green, we're fucking fine. It could be $200 green, like we're fine. You know what I'm saying? So that was also helpful. But Carla's gone through it too, where it's like, you know, she's like, oh, well, you know, I feel like my sister's, because, you know, she's on the team, she's working, but like I'm going to yoga class. I'm like, it's because you're the boss. Like, she worked to be able to do that. Yeah, she worked to be able to do that. And so, but that was like incomprehensible to me, even a year ago, 12 months ago, 15 months ago. Like, it wasn't even something that I would even think about. And now, and then with the short-term rental thing. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sell the place that I had rented, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna buy 2 short-term rentals this year. In our previous conversations, when I was so sold on syndications, what would I say to you?
That syndications was the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Management, the missing pieces.
Taxes,
And having the right person.
partner. So I wouldn't do it without an operational partner, right? Otherwise I really wouldn't. I'd just keep doing syndication. But we have the operational partner now, so check this out. I rent where I live, and I just bought a short-term rental. I sound crazy to a lazy mind. Most people would be like, what are you doing, bro? Yeah, and what I'm doing is I'm like with, whether it's syndications or the short-term rentals plus rev share, now it's like.
Which one do you like better, this one or the last one we stayed in?
Oh, that's a good question.
Which one do you see yourself more living in?
Oh, living in? I don't know.
For you to live in?
They're both pretty similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have a pickleball court instead of a basketball court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 acres or 1 acre?
1 acre. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm starting to like see that, you know? But that's a long way from my dad's a furniture repairman, and when we used to walk into houses like these, I'd watch him get small. You ever seen somebody do that? Where they like in a way genuflect, right? So that would make me be like, oh shit, like this is like outside of us, right? But the way I'm starting to see myself now is like, all right, I give talks. I do events like these. Like I fly and meet with partners, right? That's what my role has become. But it's completely different. If you look at my calendar from what I was doing 12 months ago to what I'm doing today, it's completely different. Before it was filled with listing appointments and prospecting and negotiating. Now it's filled with third-party calls, coaching calls, and speaking events. But that's an evolution, right? But if I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't be able to serve you guys. I wouldn't be able to keep expanding because my thinking would be stuck. Does that make sense? But it baffles me, like it's unbelievable to me how much has happened because I've changed my mind. That's it. Just changing my mind along the way. I was like, Dave Ramsey's the way, and I wasn't wrong. Remember, truth is on a spectrum. I wasn't completely wrong, but there was something else that was more true. When I say syndication is the way, I'm not completely wrong. It just depends on circumstances. Like, this can be true, but something can be more true. And if I'm clear enough on the why, like Chris and like Ben, and it's important to me enough, I won't take the lazy route of just thinking I have to work harder. I'll do my best to figure it out because everybody has the capacity to figure it out. And plus you have people that are in the process of figuring out. Because I don't think I figured it out like completely, but we're in the process of it for sure. Does that make sense?
Is Aaron Novello.
Let's go. Thank you. I have a confession to make, guys. There was a time in my real estate career where I would sit in an empty house with cookies that I made, waiting for people to show up. I know, I'm not proud of this shit. I also used to wear my name tag and stomp around public smiling at people, hallucinating that someone would say, oh my God, this is so strange. I was actually thinking about selling my home. And I don't know anybody, my sister, my uncle, my cousin, my fucking next door neighbor. I know no agents. But because you have your name tag on, I feel like I can trust you and I'm gonna list my property with you. Yep, I see some heads nodding. You've done this shit too. And this last one, it's really tough. But again, I feel comfortable with you guys. I used to put my face on my yard signs like this, imagining that someone would say, oh my God, that's the most handsome realtor I've ever seen. I have to buy and sell with him. Yeah, done that, right? So, in all seriousness, what I'm aware of is that if we're utilizing strategies and tactics that was working between 2020 and 2021 that are reactive and passive, if you are waiting for people to show up, that is a weight loss program because you're not making any money. Anybody notice that the volumes dropped dramatically? Yeah, you can't tell because all you guys are posting like, you know, happy-go-lucky on Instagram. It's all great. It's not fucking great, don't lie. The volume's dropped 30%. The cost of money's doubled in a year. Interest rates are 7.3%. They were 3% before. Okay? An $1,800 a month payment is now $3,600 a month. Is you posting on Instagram like this going to change that? No. Write this down. When times get tough, only the skilled get paid. When times get tough, only the skilled get paid. We've moved from a speed environment, who can get to the lead the fastest gets the business, to now we are in a skilled-based environment. Whoever's the most skilled is going to get the business. Because I'm curious, with less listings, are you competing more? 100%. Right? With less opportunities, are you competing more? Yup. What do you think's going to do it? When I ask people, I'm like, what's your competitive advantage? They're like, I treat my clients right. And I'm like, that's fucking dumb. Everybody does that. Like, oh, I put my clients first. Everybody does that. Jack Welch said a long time ago, if you don't have a competitive advantage, don't compete. Okay? So as the marketplace shifts and changes, we need the right mindset, the right skills, and the right approach. So that way you can continue to get your unfair share. Who besides me is interested in their unfair share? I'm sorry, are we in the right fucking room here? Who besides me is interested in their unfair share? Because check this out, competition's good for who? The consumer. It is not good for me. I do not want to compete, I want to dominate. Make sense? Okay. Now, how do I know that this is true? How can I speak to you from a place of conviction, the same way I know the sky is blue and the grass is green? I started selling real estate in 2006, and I was being told to sit in open houses, name tag, face on yard signs. I made $13,000 my first year. Not something people would pay you to come tell you how they did that. They wouldn't put you on a panel. They definitely wouldn't invite you on a podcast, and they certainly wouldn't pay you to teach them how you made just above the poverty line. Right? The reason was I didn't have an accurate assessment of reality. I didn't understand what this game was. But once I understood that the money's not in the service, it's in the selling of the service, then it was off to the races. So let me prove my point. How many people in this room have a real estate license? Raise your hands. Okay? We can all perform the same service, correct? Do we all make the same amount of money?
No.
Why?
Everyone is different.
Nope. Some people know how to sell the service better than others. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The average real estate agent, if they go on 100 listings, they only take 20 of them. You know why? Because you guys are going in there, oh my God, you have a puppy, I have a puppy, we should be friends, yay. Yeah, I know what you guys do. Okay? When I'm going on listings, 85% of the time I take a listing. I'll make $800,000, average agent makes $47,000. What's the difference? I'm sorry? Money's clearly different, but what's leading to the money? Skills. Does that make sense? So how do I know that this is true? So I only made $13,000 that first calendar year. I got an accurate assessment. In 2007, up until April, I did 15 transactions. I was on track to do 60 deals, much better, right? And then I get a phone call while I'm prospecting. For you agents, that's where like you make outbound calls. I don't know if you guys know that. And you guys have like spidey sense where like you can feel something's wrong before you know it's wrong? Yep. Okay, I had that feeling. And I did something that if you know me very well, I would never do, which is that I actually stopped prospecting and I picked up the phone. And it was my dad. And I could tell very quickly due to his breath and what was happening that my spidey sense was accurate. My mom had just had a very intense health event that required everybody's undivided attention. He was like, hey, whatever you're doing right now, you need to stop and come home. So I did. Within 1 week, gave away all the listings, all the pendings, rented out the condo that I owned, 6 blocks from University of Florida, and I moved back home and started over from scratch. Anybody besides me ever start over from scratch before? Physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally? Is that easy? No. And then 2008 happened. Yay! How many people have been selling real estate? Were selling real estate in 2008? Oh, this is fucking great. 95% of you have no idea what that was like. You think this is like a huge market disruption? Check this out. 50% of everything on the market was a short sale or foreclosure. Okay? Prices were going down 30% per year. People were having to bring money to closing to sell. The most I ever did, guy brought $100,000 to sell, just to get rid of it. Okay? Now, in that environment, after I moved back down from 2007, April, till the end of that year, did 17 deals. Next year in 2008, 50, while everything's imploding. Next year, 75. Next year, 89. Next year, 98. And the next year, 100. No short sales, no REOs, no foreclosures. One at a time. I did 100 deals one year, 75 were expired listings. Yep, you feel the energy in the room? So that's how I know emphatically what I'm saying to you is true. I didn't read this shit in a book and think it's cute. Okay? Most of you guys are used to getting talked to by people who haven't actually been highly productive. Right? So, I believe that everybody in this room, with the right mindset, the right skills, the right approach, can dominate this market and any market. Doesn't matter if it's up, sideways, down, backwards, doesn't matter. I spent the last 17 years of my career, I've sold 2,000 homes. I did 100 deals a year, 10 years in a row. I did 200 deals a year twice with 2 assistants and 2 buyer's agents, and 170 of those deals were mine, and they were all listings. Round of applause, please. Okay? So what we're going to do for the next 30, maybe 45 minutes is I'm going to go over with you and share with you what I share with coaching clients and people in my organization at EXP, Elite Builders, to teach them how to be productive in all environments, to have the right mindset, the right skills, and the right approach. Who's up for this? Say aye. Aye. Come on, guys. I need more energy than that. Who's up for this? Say aye. Aye. Okay, good. So if you want to set 1 appointment a day, because by the way, if you're having mindset issues right now, set 1 appointment a day and it'll solve it. You're having money problems right now? Set 1 appointment a day, it'll solve it. If you're considering driving Uber, set 1 appointment a day and it'll solve it. You notice that nervous laughter? Because someone's like, fuck, is he paying attention to me? Like, is he watching me? So, if we want to set 1 appointment a day, the first thing we have to do is a mindset. I prospect for appointments, not contacts. A lot of you guys are counting the amount of people that you're speaking to. I prospect specifically for appointments, not contacts. From an approach perspective, a lot of you guys lead from a place of authority, which is really lame. You're like, I don't know if you know, but I sold a home in your neighborhood, right? And I'm the queen of the falls. Did you know that? Can you imagine if you walked into the baker and they were like, hey, you're like, hey, can I get a bagel? They're like, I don't know if you know this, but I'm kind of a big deal. Okay, I make bagels all the time. What would you say to the baker?
Give me one for free.
Or you'd be like, I don't fucking care. Like, I just want a bagel. But this is how we lead, right? Are you familiar with the techniques that I use to sell homes? No. And I don't give a shit. Who is that focused on, by the way? You. And where does it come from? Insecurity. You're trying to prove yourself worthy. And it repels people. It pushes them away. Okay? Instead, hey, you know, my job's to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. I guess I'm curious. You live in a lovely neighborhood. I don't have to tell you that. Great school district. Was there any particular reason you were even considering selling? And then what are they going to do? And who is that about? Yeah, and I'm wondering, because again, like I'm not here to twist your arm at all. Is it an option for you to not sell the home and still move? Like maybe rent it out? I'm wondering, if you were still here 6 months from now and the home wasn't sold, what would that do for you and your family? Like, would that be an issue? I've only spoken to you. You seem to be really excited about selling. I'm noticing there's somebody else on title. How do they feel about it? Anybody besides me ever got really excited, ran on an appointment, talked to the wife, she's pumped, sit down, the husband's like this? And you realize in 5 minutes, they're not fucking doing anything. Whose fault was that? Because I didn't ask? Questions, right? I didn't find out what the situation was because I'm too focused on who? Me. Right? Find out how you can add value. What's the situation, right? Relationships plus value over time. Whoever adds more value wins. Because I don't know if you guys notice, we all do the same fucking thing. Oh, I have buyers in Venezuela. No, you don't. Don't do that. Hey, here's a little secret. You guys ready? We all use the same photographers. We all put it in MLS, which actually sells it. How many people posted over the last year, we sold $30,000 above the asking price? Are you posting now? I had to lower it 6 times to sell it. Wait, let's get this straight. You were responsible for one but not the other? You know what the real truth is? Neither one of them had anything to do with you. It's market dynamics and conditions. It's just ego, bro. It has nothing to do with what's true. And again, you can get whatever you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. Focus on what's true for them. What are they trying to accomplish? Why is it important to them? Right? So, I mean, you were kind enough to share with me that the main reason you want to sell the home is you want to move to Texas. I guess I'm curious. Let's say if you actually get the home sold and you move to Texas, what is that going to do for you and your family? How would your guys' life improve in some way? And they tell you, well, this, and this. Okay. And how important is that to you at this stage in your life? Do you see? Who is that about? Now imagine I'm speaking that way and everybody else is like, are you familiar with the techniques that I use? Who are they going to talk to? Is it magic, by the way? No, it's just focus and intention. Does this make sense? Say aye. Aye. Again, does this make sense? Say aye. Aye. Good. The next thing is you got to role play constantly and consistently. Okay? How can you possibly get good at something that you don't practice all the time? Is that not immature? You really think you're going to walk into somebody's house and ask them to pay you 10, 15, 20, 30,000 fucking dollars and you don't practice every day? That's immature. It's actually ridiculous. Can you imagine you walked into the physician, the surgeon, and they're like, yeah, I'm just going to wing this shit. Right? Yeah, fuck it. Like, I feel like I know what I'm doing. Would you allow them to do that? Imagine you got on a plane with a pilot and like, yeah, it's the first time I've done this. I've done it enough. I'm just going to fucking wing it. I'm not going to look at the checklist. We laugh, but this is the shit that we do. You show up unprepared, late, dressed in flip-flops and yoga pants, and you're like, yeah, pay me 20,000 bucks. What are you doing? Do you realize that there's 20,000 agents in the multiple listing service? There's only 100 of them that do over 20 million in volume a year. That's it. 100. You have 100 people competing for 20,000 jobs. If that's what's true, which it is, what would your practice schedule look like if you actually wanted one of those jobs? You tell me how much money you want to make a year. If I follow you around and look at your practice schedule, do they match? Usually not. You notice energy in the room? Boo. Look, I'd love to be able to outsource push-ups to the Philippines and I get diesel. That'd be dope. You can't do that. There's no way around it. And there's no security in this business. There's only opportunities. Do you guys get like minimum wage if you don't make any money in sales? I'm just checking because you guys act like it all the time. Right? So there's no security, there's only opportunities. But if I can get my skills to such a degree that if there's an opportunity, there's an 80 to 90% chance I'm going to capitalize on that opportunity, I've just created security for myself and my family. I never want to have to look at my wife and be like, you know what? We can't take that trip to Europe because daddy didn't know how to answer the question, what's your commission? I don't want to have to look at my son and be like, yo, we can't do the really fun shit at Disney World because they said they want to think about it and I just verbally vomited. And I walked out of there clicking my heels like, yay, we really connected. They're going to be awesome. And somebody like me comes in and closes them and then you're heartbroken. I know. I don't like it when you do that, Ewan. Don't close them. Leave some for me. Right? So I feel like it's my duty and obligation. And as a marketplace becomes more challenging, I have to skill up. If I'm hallucinating that just because I'm me, I'm going to do more when volume's down 30%, is that an accurate assessment of reality? No. No. Hey, just for everybody to be clear, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody. Wouldn't it be dope if there was like a whole like group of people on horses like, I'm coming to save Eric. Nobody's coming. It's up to me. If it's to be, it's up to me. And then this last point I want to really push home. We all want 1% outcomes. We all want to list 100 homes a year. We want to be physically fit. We want financial freedom and independence. That's a 1% outcome. But we drastically underestimate the volume of activity that's required over an extended period of time to get the 1% outcome. So I role played twice a day, 6 days a week for 3 years. Okay? I would videotape myself presenting. You guys want to have a good time? Videotape your next presentation, get a bottle of wine, sit down with your significant other, be like, this shit's going to be funny. You'll be watching yourself, you're like, what the hell am I doing? What was I even saying? What am I doing? I would videotape myself, right? I would record prospecting calls and type them out. And now I can sit in a room with 200 people and role play with them like this. Can you do that? If I was to call people out at random and be like, hey, what's your commission? Can you answer it with conviction? If I say I want to think about it, what are you going to say? Look, if you guys are on, if I own like a thing that you guys were, responsible for the results, I would stop you in the hallway and be like, hey, we're going to interview another agent. And if you go, you're fired. It's your job. Can you imagine you went to the doctor and you were like, hey, I think I broke my arm. They're like, wait a minute. I need some time. I got to go to YouTube.
Oh my God.
I got to go. I'm really not prepared today. Come back to me. Right? And you need practice in high volume, right? That's why you need to practice every single day. How can you possibly get good if you're not doing it every day? And you need feedback, real feedback, right? If you see people that are world class at something, a buddy of mine, he went to Juilliard, right, for vocals. I watched a video with him and a master vocal coach. He would go, the coach would be like, stop. Your tongue is in the back of your mouth. You're not projecting your voice. Do it again. Still doing it. Still doing it. 5 minutes. Stop, start, stop, start, stop. But then when he got it, I heard the difference. I need really high feedback. We have a role play group, guarantees your role play partner 5 days a week. All you have to do is show up. We handle all the scheduling. If you don't show up 3 times, we kick you out. We don't give you your money back. Because the strength of the group is based on the consistency of its members. Make sense? How many people could use that? Yeah, good. Here's my question to you, and this only works if we're honest, okay? No bullshit, we're all friends now. I confess to you so you can confess to me, okay? How many of you guys in this room, no bullshit, role play 5 days a week? Hands up. Everybody else is independently wealthy. You all have too much fucking money. Isn't that unbelievable? Nobody. That's insane, okay? How many people practice a listing presentation 5 days a week? It's where all the money is. It's where all the leverage is. Yeah. 2 people.
So I want to play games that if I wait, I win. Having all your money tied up in your house and in a retirement plan is another form of poverty. I literally had to sit down with a journal and unpack that statement.
In your version, you're actually collecting cash now. That seems like a faster or shorter game.
What most people do though then is they never take that cash and buy back time. The long game is the repurchasing of time.
Guys, today I get to have Aaron Novello on the show, someone who has sold about 2,000, maybe over 2,000 homes. And he's got over 120 agents that he coaches in US and in Canada. And today we're going to be talking about several things, one of which is going to be how he got to a $2 million net worth, but still felt broke, and how he's changed that up to actually live a life of much greater freedom. We're going to talk about the short game versus the long game and a lot of other things on the show. So if you're someone that either is looking to build a net worth, or maybe you have some net worth, but you still feel like you're living a really small lifestyle, we're going to get into that today. This episode's for you. Aaron, thank you so much. Take us right into it. Give us a scene and a picture. You have $2 million in net worth. You feel broke. Why? And then tell us where you went from there.
Yeah, so I was following the kind of traditional guidance, which was kind of Dave Ramsey, pay off, your primary residence, and invest all your money into retirement accounts. And that, it works. I'm not saying that it's bad.
So when you say it works, what do you mean?
Yeah, what I mean is I think for the majority of people, they want to play short games, not long games. So the difference is that they want it immediately, right? They don't want to take the time to build a really solid foundation. So I want to play games that if I wait, I win.
And the reason I want to play games that if I wait, I win is because very few people are willing to play them. Like I think producing favorable outcomes, I don't want to use the word success or failure because those have like judgment in them, but instead producing the outcome that you ultimately wish to produce is really about doing certain things, fundamental things, over an unreasonable amount of time. So it's like volume over time. It's V over T. So I think we drastically underestimate the volume of activity that's required over an extended period of time in order to get the 1% outcome. Because everybody wants the 1% outcome, but I'd love to be able to like outsource push-ups to the Philippines and like I get diesel. Like that doesn't work. So I have to build a foundation, right? So I think having a foundation of living within your means, which is what we did. Like as income grew, I didn't grow lifestyle to the same proportion. And investing the difference is a very good behavior to like adopt or create for yourself, right? Like a habit. So that habit was very helpful because I think particularly for high earners, people who are earning high income, they think that an investment is going to get them freedom when the strongest asset that they have is their income.
Basically, what you're saying is you're talking a little bit about short game and long game. And you're talking about investing. So if we talk about the good points of Dave Ramsey, it's the saving, living below your means, and investing. That's the good part. Now you're talking about that being the short game, though. I mean,
yes.
How is putting a little bit of money every month and waiting for the retirement to hit 30 years the short game?
Yeah, because I'm waiting for a time, A, that I may never get to. And B, there's no freedom in it. So I remember where I was at an event, a learning event, and I was listening to a podcast and I heard Grant Cardone say something. He said, having all your money tied up in your house and in a retirement plan is another form of poverty. Now, when he said that, I know, that's a kind of charged statement. I'm aware it's going to get people's attention, but I really started to ponder it. Like, Matt, I literally had to sit down with a journal and like unpack that statement. Like, what does that really mean? And as I started to look at it, because I did have a home that was free and clear at the time, I did have a meaningful kind of, amount saved for retirement. And yet I didn't feel wealthy. I still had to sell real estate in order to pay bills. I didn't have residual income that was greater than housing, transportation, food, and insurance. So once I heard that radically shifted my thinking. And I moved away from fully funding retirement accounts, which I no longer do, and instead started to aggressively put money into assets that pay me money.
In your version, which I totally agree with, by the way, we do the same thing. But in your version, you're actually collecting cash now. That seems like a faster or shorter game.
Well, I think I would propose it's the long game in the sense that like ultimately, the reason is because whatever your hustle is, whether it's podcasting, selling real estate, wholesaling, like I don't care what you do, you're a chiropractor, it's just a mechanism to raise cash. What most people do though then is they never take that cash and buy back time. So the idea is the long game is the repurchasing of time. Okay. Right? Instead of just increasing lifestyle, it's the repurchasing of time. And people are so stuck in short games, Matt. They're so stuck in collecting cash for trading time for money. They never pick their head up long enough to think about the long game.
Yeah.
And what they do then is they put their time and energy into things that don't compound. So the problem with like, let's say trading time for money is there's no compounding component to it. It doesn't get bigger as time progresses. Right. And there's a limit to the amount of time that I can, like what I can charge for my time. Even if I, like in coaching environments, if I'm on a group call, it might be worth, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 an hour, but there's still a limit to it. Whereas if I'm paying attention to the long game over a reasonable amount of time, 10, 15 years, you can pick your head up and now you have cash flow that pays for housing, transportation, food, and insurance. And then you're financially free and independent. You could be much more bolder in the decisions that you make in your business, much more bolder in decisions you make about going after different vehicles or different opportunities.
The getting the time back is where it's all at, and our perspective, right? Because it's the freedom that you get to do what you want. It's also the freedom if you want to continue to do more in business to work on your business instead of in your business, et cetera. And so let's talk about like a little bit more of the specifics. So you had $2 million in net worth, more or less, at this point in the journey. What did you do? Did you sell your house? Right. And if you're married, how did you explain that to your wife? Like, give us the nuts and bolts.
Yeah. So that's a really good question.
I didn't sell any assets. What I said to myself is like, okay, that's a solid foundation. And for the stuff that I've, if you understand compounding, and I know that everything has a risk. I think people go through life, Matt, imagining that they can avoid risk. You can't. You just get to choose the risk that you want to take. So leaving your money in the bank is a risk. You don't think it is, but it is, because it's going down in value and all currencies eventually go to zero. So, but investing's risky. So I can't avoid risk. I just get to choose the risks that I want to take. And I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, I don't need to keep fully funding retirement accounts, because if I leave them alone for the next 30 years, and again, this is based on, historical data, it may plus or minus a little bit. There's bumps along the road, but let's say you get 2% in dividends and 5% in growth cumulatively over 30 years. Well, that means every 10 years it doubles. So if I leave it alone and don't touch it, that by itself will be more than enough. I no longer need to focus on that. And the reason why most people fully fund those is because they get a tax break, but it's not even that big of a tax break. Versus now, if I can invest capital into assets that pay me cash flow today, so I'm buying back time today, plus I get tax benefits, that's a more efficient use of capital. So it was more like an awareness, and I just have the good fortune where my significant other, I know sometimes people are in dynamics where like one is more perhaps money conscious than the other, or one is a saver and one's a spender. That's not the case for me and my wife. And we both have the same value, which is the thing that I value the most is freedom. There should be 3 rules around it. One is if you can't buy it twice in cash, don't buy it. You can't afford it. Number 2 is it needs to come out of cash flow, not earned income. And number 3, don't try to justify it. If it's stupid, it's stupid. You like it, you want it, you love it, you're into watches, fine, do it. But don't try to be like, it's going to help me in my business or something like that, right? So yeah, it was just that one phrase, Matt. Having all your money trapped in your house and in your retirement account is another form of poverty. Literally melted these sacred cows that were in my brain, and I began to shift to then but like dumping money into syndications, because I love having access to commercial institutional grade real estate. I just don't believe that it makes sense for me personally to spend my time on investments until my investments pay me more than my income. And for most people, that's probably for their whole life. Like until it's throwing off more money, because I see agents, they'll start make money and then they'll stop what's making them all the money to go mess with a property that pays them like $500 a month in residuals. It's like, why are you doing that? Yeah. It's not a productive trade, right? So I started to aggressively put money into that asset class as a mechanism to produce cash flow on a monthly basis.
Incredible. And so I had an interview yesterday with Jack Gibson, and he lays out basically these 5 phases of wealth, which lead all the way from like you can't pay basically all of more which are aligned with cash flow. So you can't pay your basic needs, and then you can't pay it all the way up to like you have private jets and things. And so for you, like, have you thought through at what point of cash flow where you might switch back to focusing on things that could have mass net worth acceleration?
Yeah. So what I'm thinking about now is what can I do? So I had somebody recent in my life. I have 3 different coaches in my life because I firmly believe in that. And somebody from a business perspective who's just like a few steps ahead of me, he looked at me right on a call like this, stared me right in the eyes and said, Aaron, you're going to die with a lot of money. And it was interesting because nobody had ever said that to me before. And I think as entrepreneurs, we have this like a lot of entrepreneurs have anxiety around money. They don't come from it from a place of abundance. It's more like there's a lack of, which is part of the driving force that causes them to keep going and keep going. But I remember having a conversation with my wife. She's like, how much is enough, bro? How much in the bank? Is it a 500,000? Is it a million? Like, what is it? Like, oh, what, right? So, but what he said to me, Matt, is like, if that's what's true, the game's no longer money. The game is time. And the game is impact.
Yeah. So
what I'm interested in doing now is focusing on things that are the highest leveraged activity, meaning it has the biggest multiplier effect for my time. So for every one input, I can get multiple outputs, but also that allow me to have the biggest impact, right? To impact the most amount of people. Yeah. And I think if you lay out like some kind of simple rules, like filters, because as people that are like young and ambitious and enterprising and aggressive, there's going to be no shortage of opportunities. But opportunities are not all equal.
and two things could be true at the same time. So I need a filter with which to like say which one is worth the time. So the first one is if I can't make this, this is not worth the time. Because as entrepreneurs, we typically have a tendency to want like every penny on the table. It's like, oh, there's $5 there, I want to get it. Oh, there's $10 over here, I want to get it. But it's not the most productive use of time. So one is if I can't make this, whatever that is for you, 100,000, 200,000, $1 million, if I can't do it, it's not worth my time. That's going to eliminate 8 out of 10 opportunities. But then with the opportunities that are left, whether it's focusing on investments, which I can share you something that we're going to start to do, which is more leveraged way to do it, or other business ventures or whatever, is okay. Of the two that are left, which one will allow me to have the biggest impact? Which one is in alignment with problems that I'm interested in solving, like particular gifts that I may have? And then which one provides me with the most margin with time, money, and energy? And then you'll end up with one, which is like the whale. And when you end up with that one, I stack the thing that's my most valuable asset, which is my time. I'm just going to stack it on that one thing that has the biggest multiplier. Now, as far as like focusing on investments, something that I'm exploring now, I just bought a short-term rental. But there's somebody in my life who he's a partner with me at EXP, and he owns 50 of them here in South Florida. He manages 150 of them. So he's a world-class operator. So the only reason I'm interested in messing with it is because I have a world-class operator. Otherwise, I wouldn't screw with it. I'm not interested in taking courses and trying to figure that shit out because it's not a productive use of my time. And I don't mean that egotistically, it's just true. So because he's a world-class operator, we're starting to toy with, with friends and family, like doing a raise, and then he would run.
Yeah.
So doing like a syndication, but he manages it because he has that completely dialed in. Like he has, he owns the cleaning company. He's vertically integrated. Like he has the whole thing dialed in. So I can use my kind of influence or my network, and he can use his superpower, and together we can, help people. And it's just a much more leveraged thing. So now instead of me doing it all myself, I'm leveraging labor, other people's labor, but I'm also leveraging capital, which is other people's thing, and software, because he has the software for all that other, for the scheduling and things of that nature.
That's incredible. And I mean, there's so many lessons that are in there. I mean, obviously you talk about, it's not a good use of your time. For most people, there is one, maybe two things that they could do at a world-class level and really, really excel at, And so if you do that and you just leverage all these other, like the who, not how concept, it creates accelerations that are just unbelievable. Because even if you could take 2 years or 5 years and become a world-class operator, is it really worth it? As opposed to going 10 times deeper in one and just finding people that have already spent the 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. And my life has changed when I stopped looking at people as competitors and started looking at them as collaborators.
Especially when they're in the same space.
So it's like, hey, this person is a world-class, I'm just interested in partnering with world-class operators. And my life over the last 3 years has changed dramatically because I have partnered with world-class operators. Like, hey, you're the bomb at these huge apartment buildings. Great. I'm just going to ride your coattails. So what is margin? Margin in life refers to the space between our commitments, responsibilities, and activities and the limits of our physical, mental, and emotional capacity. Anybody besides me ever felt that there wasn't enough space between your work and other things? I have, for sure. And whenever you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, it's due to a lack of margin. And here's what we need to think about creating more margin. Creating more margin in our lives can help us reduce stress, improve our mental and physical health, increase our productivity and creativity, and allow us to focus on the things that matter most. And those things that matter most could be those intangible things like relationships and stuff, but it also could be the things that matter most in your business. Okay? It's in the margin, guys, is the life that you are all aspiring to accomplish. It's by creating margin for yourself. And there's 3 types of margin. Okay? Money margin, time margin, and energy margin. Now, we're going to talk about money first because it's the easiest one to comprehend initially. It's easy for us to think about, right? And then we'll get into time, money, and time margin and energy margin. Yeah, so as I mentioned, whenever we feel burnt out, it's because we lack margin in one of these areas. So reflect, has there ever been a time where you didn't have margin with money and you felt burnt out or stressed? Yes. Ever been a time where you didn't have margin with time and you felt burnt out or stressed? Yes. Ever been a time when you didn't have margin with energy and you felt kind of run down? And the answer is yes to all of those, right?
Or all 3.
For all 3. Or all 3. That's exactly right. So in the vein of talking about this with regards to money, because that's the first place where we can start, and it's what we've
gathered as we've gotten together, 4 times now to have this conversation about creating margin for ourselves and creating freedom. We have to really do the math, and most people are lazy with the numbers or they've never thought about it. So like we were having with that organic conversation with Ben, I was like, all right, well, what is that number? Like, how much is enough? What's the number that if you had it in residual or from multiple different sources that you would no longer work for money? Is it 10,000 a month? Is it 20,000 a month? Is it 30,000 a month? Now, when we first started gathering, my number was 10, and I wasn't even close. maybe it was like 3 or 4. And here we are, however many years later that is, maybe 2 years later. And last month I made around $28,000 in residual income. Okay. So that number's changing. For me now, it's like probably like 50. Like Jose, it's like, all right, you get 50, bro. Like, you do whatever you want. You know what I mean? But think about it. So how much? And then look at how much I need to invest in order to accomplish that goal. So $10,000 a month is 2.4 million. $20,000 a month is 4.8. $30,000 a month, 7.2. $40,000 a month, 9.6. So how much of that do I already have? How much do I need? Like, what's the difference? And when do I want it by? Okay? And then we can start to get real precise and intentional and purposeful about going after it and creating it for ourselves. So margin with money is the difference between what you need and what you have. What I see now is a lot of people are having problems because what they need and what they have are the same. There's no margin, right? Agents, because they increase lifestyle. Now, if you create a situation where what you need and what you have are the same, if anything changes like market dynamics, now you have negative margin. What's another word for negative margin?
Negative debt.
Debt. And then you have to work your way out of it, okay? So, and there are only a few vehicles where we can invest money margin. Okay? One is in attention, which we talked about. There's multiple different ways that you can monetize attention. Jose's done a really good job monetizing attention with ERC. How much money did you make last year with ERC? $200,000, bro, just with affiliate marketing with ERC. Another way to monetize attention is downlines. Another way to monetize attention is, selling products or services. And one of the ways that I've decided to move in that has created a lot of margin for me is this downline example, which we've talked about before, and you guys have seen this, so we can run through it real quickly. It's very, very quickly how quickly you can start to produce meaningful amounts of residual income. So with 6 people that cap, and those people get 1 person and they cap, that's $20,000 a year in residual income, which I'm aware how much was required in us for order to accomplish that in the physical world. It's a lot. Okay? And this is my rev share from the last time we met. Okay? Just getting started. You notice the numbers. 64, right? Cool. About 3,000. I was super excited about it. You gonna take a picture of it? Yeah, see, that's the last mastermind. This is what it has been today. And now it's even bigger than that. It's 128. And the last paid is 15,000. But like, look, guys. And if we go back here, remember, how much do we need in order to get that in residual? So in other words, I've increased my net worth by about $2.4 million since the last time we met. That's margin, right? And it can happen very, very fast with the right vehicle and with the right approach. So again, I'm not saying like don't invest in properties. I think that that's fine. I just am aware that it's slow. And it's cool. It's a good way to preserve like wealth. So in other words, like I see rev share as a mechanism. It's going to be bigger than everything else that I'm doing, or even the ADUs or wherever Jose's doing. But the way you hedge against that, so it's like, well, let's say somebody says to you like, well, what happens if YouTube goes out of business? Let's say you make $1 million a year on YouTube and YouTube goes out of business. That's a concern, right? Well, how could you hedge against that concern? What could you do?
Reinvest the income.
Huh?
Diversify.
Okay, and how could you do that?
Reinvest the income syndication.
Yeah, or in other things. Yeah, short-term rental syndications, things of that nature. So that's how I see that. So here's what it is now. But look at the history, guys. I don't know if you can see that. So from when I started on 6/30 of 2022, it was 1,000. Look at it grow as it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Every month. And that's in a short period of time, guys. And look at the transaction volume going up. So it's just if you expand your concept of what you think a team is. I have 128 people on the team. They did 51 transactions. I was not involved in any of the management of that. I was not involved in any of the labor of that. You're laughing.
It's true.
It's true. He's like, holy shit. I was not involved.
Right. And this is arguably in a bad market.
In a bad market. Yeah. So I was not involved in any of the management of those 51 deals, not involved in any of the fucking capital requirements.
Stress in those 51.
A lot of stress in those 51 deals. A lot of almost fall aparts. A lot of like, hey, what do I need to do? Like a lot of all of that. And that produced a revenue stream that's equivalent to $2.4 million a year and 6%. This is compounding plus leverage. Does that make sense? The other vehicles that we're messing with, whether it's index funds, that compounds, but it's not leveraged. Real estate, there's a little bit of leverage, right? But the deal is you need massive amounts of capital in order to really to get meaningful amounts of residual, right? So it's fine. I think it's a good wealth preservation tool. And this thing though is the Ferrari, right? Because I don't know anything else that I could be investing in that would show that amount of increase. Guys, that's 100% increase from 1,000 to 10,000. And look at this, compounding plus leverage. So this is from the beginning. It went from 8 to 13 to 19 to 29, 56, 63, 69, 76. Now notice too what's happening here. I'm not actually, this is me.
This is like a numbers analyzer, basically?
Yeah, well, this is Lars's. Yeah, he sent it to me. So I don't want to, look at my butt, but like, this is my efforts, which is on the one line. So notice, like I only brought in like 3, and then I brought in 2, and then I brought in 3, and then I guess like 7, and then only 3. But look at what's happening underneath. Do you see how for one input, you get multiple outputs? And if you look at the cumulative of what it's growing by per month, it has different, it jumps some months, but if you look at it's probably between 15-ish%, right? But what does that mean? Let's do the math on that. If something's growing at 15% per month, what does that mean? What happens in 7 months, 8 months? I'm sorry?
Doubles.
And what happens in 7 or 8 months after that? It doubles again. So let's play this out for me. So if this is, again, we can't, it's not even keeping up. We just did this and it's already 128, but 128 means 8 months from now will be what? 256. 8 months from then will be what?
512.
512. 8 months from then will be what?
It's only at the bottom is the net worth.
Yes, I'm going to get to that. I love that you see that. So, but I want you guys really to understand compounding. Because I thought compounding was I get 6% returns. Which is cool, it does compound, but it takes 10 years to compound. To double, it takes 10 years to double. This is doubling every 8 months. Think about how big that is. Think about the difference in that. But if you look, let's see, right under
Third line from the bottom.
the third line from the bottom, which it says the equivalent in net worth in thousands. So that's the most updated one. You see it right there. It's 15,874. But that's the equivalent of $2.6 million. Guys, I want you to just, for a second, okay, comprehend this for a second. Really think about this. It took me 16 years of 70 hours a week, 100 plus homes a year for 10 years in a row, 200 deals a year twice to accumulate this. It took me 1 year to accumulate this. Because you're in a vehicle that compounds and is leveraged. Is this making sense? So we keep talking about margin. We're talking about how do we get it? How do we get it as fast as possible? Well, this is a perfect example of that. And if you look at it based on what it's compounding, remember Jose said, hey, 2 questions to ask. Can my business grow without me? This can. And can it exist without me? This can. Does that make sense? That's why it's such a powerful vehicle, guys. And again, my intention of showing this to you is not to make it about me or to brag or boast. I want you to see the power of that vehicle. Okay? Yeah.
I think that all the work that you've done ahead of time, making the name for yourself as far as the coach goes, yourself, Jose, has allowed you to grow at that rate. You know, because you have so much value to give to the agents that are coming over.
Yeah.
As far as it's, you know, get in your downline, get the scripts, get in the role play, get in the coaching groups, you know, our weekly groups, the talks. I think it's so much value that other people are like, it's a no-brainer. Let me join under you. You know, so I think that building your name all that time has gotten you to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely some truth to that. I think the other thing that's true though is like I let go of something that was really big in order to pursue this fully. Does that make sense? So only 28% of people in the company participate in rev share, just like with profit share. Why do you think only such a small percentage participate, even though it's a huge opportunity?
Because of what I said when you asked me, is like, I'm in a box.
You're in a box. Yeah. This is my system. It's not what I do. I don't do that. And then what I see them do is they start to go in their head, like, and they start to say to themselves, well, Aaron's different. Like, no. Here's all the reasons why. But I think what's true is if you just, everybody here has value. And everybody here is really, you're some of the best agents in the country. So it's just having a belief that this is possible. I saw this before I started.
Here's a way to relate it. There are people in this company, and one of them was at that Cabo retreat.
Yeah.
There's a guy who's like the second largest in the company or something like that. He's got like over 2,000 people in his tree.
Yeah.
And he's never sold real estate ever. He was a contractor who made the decision to do this.
To make rev share his thing.
And it's one of the videos from the Brent Grove retreat in Cabo.
Oh, that's good.
That I think I sent you.
That's really good.
And if you think about also from the perspective of, there's team leaders in Keller Williams that have also never sold real estate. Or if they did, maybe they weren't very successful. And they're recruiting people.
Right. So I think sometimes people can imagine like they need to like have like, you know, and plus for people that are.
I'm having to get past that.
I know you are, which is interesting for me because you're a super powerful person and a powerful agent. And you do 80 deals a year and you make a lot of money, $700,000. Like you're it. You're the top 0.1%, but in your mind you're still thinking like, oh, what do I have to offer? You have a lot to offer. It's just stepping into that, right?
I mean, I'm writing a value stack, right? So I may not be an Aaron.
It's there for us though, to offer.
We have Aaron, we have Jose Luis, we have Lars, we have so much to offer, right? So, and I think that you've had the results that you've had based on the amount of time that you've put into it.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, people can say you're different. Well, what makes you different is the amount of contacts you've made, the amount of people, and the effort you're putting into it.
Yeah, we're doing lunch and learns every month.
If any
Events
of us
every
reached
month.
the amount of people Aaron's reached, we probably have damn good results too.
But even like Brian, he's got
I agree.
7 people already.
Yeah.
Like I was like, holy, like.
Yeah. And he still actively sells real estate. Like it's
Those
not.
are all frontline people, right?
No, frontline's like 10.
Then I saw.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And you're already still.
His first year, you know, he's first one brought in 8 in 1 year.
But again, if we remember, the theme of this is this: margin. Does that create margin? Will that cover housing, transportation, food, and insurance? If you had residual that covered housing, transportation, food, and insurance, would you have margin in your life?
That would be badass, period. Right? But this just to cover.
Allow you to do whatever.
Right.
That's exactly right. So, but in order for me to really take full advantage of this, I remember how I said when we were having that organic talk that like I really didn't understand compounding. I didn't understand leverage. Like I had a rudimentary understanding of leverage, just like you had a rudimentary understanding of investing. But videos like this, there's a couple people that have helped me to understand leverage better. One is Novello, the Almanac of Novello Ravikant, and 2 is Alex Hermosi.
It took me 5 years to learn focus. It took me 5 years, maybe 10, depending on what do you mean about focus. picking one opportunity and ruthlessly going after that one thing. I think a lot of people, I mean, me, I get so, like, I get excited. I love opportunity. I love seeing the unseen, seeing where things can come together.
I see your mind going there.
So wait a minute. You mean to tell me that your son was diagnosed with cancer, and not only is he cured, but you started a foundation to provide funding for the research that helped him to get cured? Is that what you're telling me?
100%. I mean, God is good, right? So absolutely.
Not only was he diagnosed initially and you guys went into like, whoa,